what great things could people do if they were dynamite from 65 to 95?
Right.
30
Right.
years of not just playing golf or recovering from strokes or heart attacks. So I think there's a lot of psychosocial things that could be great for society if people turned that on.
This is Shadow Me Next with Dr. Jeffrey Boone.
The key might be stories. Like
Mhm.
most of my patients now, I said, you know what you're buying here is at least one, maybe two more generations of life.
Mhm.
Buying life, because this is the biggest disease in the history of the world. And it's killed more people every year for the last 100 years than
Mm.
anything else. And there's a lot of other health problems. But if you could stop this disease, you could do a lot. And then all of a sudden, the sidebars is most neurodegenerative, carcinogenic,
Mm.
atherosclerotic, cardiovascular, they come from a core of inflammation oxidation. So most of the medicines we use and everything we use is associated with reduced cancer rates.
Mhm.
So I
Mhm.
think accidentally we're going to prevent dementia and heart disease. And then we get back to processed foods and, exercise, the things that I think we can help you live to 90 and kind of create your own blue zone in the middle of your own body, no matter whether you live in Sardinia or, Costa Rica or not. But you're not going to enjoy it unless you're fit, strong, lean,
Right.
eating healthy and all that. So as my career unfolds, hopefully the end of it will be getting back to the lifestyle, which is not enough to overwhelm aging and genetics, but
Mhm.
it's going to make you enjoy life more. So I
Mm.
think it's all coming together, but it's really who is the market, and it's the patient that has to hear it and have to want it. And then you've got to be foolish to think that your insurance company is interested in your health. Your
Yeah,
insurance company is interested in the cost of your health,
that's
which
right.
doesn't make them horrible, but is a whole different game. So you've got to, I tell my patient, you need to look for ways to spend more money on your health.
Mm.
Because if your insurance is covering everything, you're not getting cutting edge stuff.
Ooh, that is a hot take, and you are absolutely right about that. I love
You're
that.
getting cheap stuff. And then that's where I think the double-blind placebo-controlled trial, it can be a crutch for both doctor, hospital, and insurance company because they can always say,
Mhm.
well, we need more data.
Mhm.
No, if you show me a study where it's good to have plaque and it's good to have more of it, I don't need 30 years to tell me I should treat it. Now, if I saw three
Right.
studies, that's where the humble confidence comes in. If I saw three studies, oh, yeah, it's good if you have a lot of plaque in this trial, or it's good that you have a cholesterol of 300. Then I would slow down, but I'm not going to wait for 10 years for them to actually prove it.
Mhm.
Um, Especially if I'm humbly looking and listening to the naysayers. No,
Mhm.
I've never seen a downside from this medicine. Or, but if it's 50-50 up and down and there's 500 side effects, then you don't go for it quickly or aggressively. So it is an exciting possibility nowadays for this to occur.
It's incredible, Dr. Boone. And I think something that we have not mentioned, but is absolutely important to mention is, the person listening might be thinking, well, yeah, most of America really does need what he's describing, right? We all need to eat better. We all need to exercise. We all need to protect our health. But here's the thing, Dr. Boone, is you are coming from a practice that is not just your typical average Joe. You are working with elite athletes across the NFL, the NBA, the MLB. What have you learned about working with these incredibly gifted athletes who are the epitome of health, really, and yet still, unfortunately, experiencing some of these things that, me who doesn't have a nutritionist and a personal trainer and all of this, um, I'm experiencing it as well.
Yes. Yeah, I think we back in the 90s, I was trying to figure out how do you get America's attention about that? And that's 30
Mm-hmm.
years ago when we really didn't have, a third of the medicines we've got now and all that. And I started working with the Denver Broncos players and coaches, testing them. And then I thought, well, they're young. The players are young, so we're usually looking for odd genetic holes in their heart or cardiomyopathies or
Mm.
arrhythmias to protect the player. So then I started talking to some former players about the idea we could try to develop a preventive cardiology program for NFL alumni.
Mm.
And we were able to do it all with a lot of corporations getting involved, donating medicines, testing, and that was in the 90s. And the main reason I was doing is that all the people in America, what do they love? The NFL.
Yeah.
And if all those guys, it was at the time when the beer commercials were the Miller Lite All-Stars. And so
Yes.
they were all advertising beer before so I thought, could we develop like the Lipitor Light All-Stars where, all these famous players are telling their people to go get on Lipitor, because that was the big hot drug at the time. And that never panned out, but it was really designing not only to help them,
Mhm.
but them as an example for that. And that continues to mature. So now a company called HeartFlow, for example, which is one of the artificial intelligence companies that interprets cardiac CT scans,
Mm.
they've now authorized a series of studies called Game Film, where anyone that's ever played NBA, NFL, or NHL can come to Boone Heart, and now we're developing a number of centers around the country for a free CT angiogram. And again, it'll be
Wow.
good for them. We're already presenting some data at the American College of Cardiology meeting. But I think even doctors, it gets their attention when they see those three letters, NFL, NHL, NBA, you just want to read about it. And that could be very helpful in selling the idea. So oftentimes, though, it gets to the point where people think they've got to be rich or famous athletes to do what we do. Not
Hmm.
true at all. Ours is
Hmm.
really quite middle class priced and quite accessible to everybody if they really want it. But I think those interesting athletes are a lot of fun, and we've tested everybody from Tebow to Peyton Manning in the Broncos, just being players
Yeah.
that they screen. And now they've developed the combine in Indianapolis where they test all players for heart disease out of that Broncos experience.
Well, it blows my mind, and I think a lot of people feel this way, where you can have somebody who literally their life's work is to be healthy enough to compete at the highest level, and their heart, all of their organs are involved, but especially their heart. And if these things can unfortunately happen in these athletes who are being monitored, who are being very well taken care of, it is a fantastic, not a cautionary tale. How do I want to say this? It's just a fantastic motivator for us
Yes.
to say, you know what, this could be something that could help me as well. I can't throw a football 10 yards, let alone as far as Tim Tebow throws a football, but I can protect my heart the way that he's protecting his heart too. So I think it
Yes.
is, I think it's incredible. Dr. Boone, this has been an amazing conversation. And before we close, I did want to ask if the listener who is a pre-health student, let's talk to our pre-health student listener right now, wanted to explore preventive medicine, whether it's cardiology or anything else, what would you say to them? Where should they look? What should they be pursuing right now?
Yeah, it's interesting. A lot of the fun of medicine is learning these high-end skill sets. So
Right.
what I do is not for everyone. Even cardiologists, have learned all these techniques. And so you have to be very passionate about prevention
Mm-hmm.
to do what we do. Now, what's happened though is our ultrasounds, treadmills, echocardiograms, CT scans are now the highest level of technology. So other than interventionally getting involved, there's a lot of high-tech skill sets that could look at there
Mm-hmm.
as a possibility for their career. And then I think University of Colorado is pioneering the first physician assistant fellowship in preventive cardiology. So
Wow.
so as a physician assistant nurse practitioner, you could actually develop almost a fellowship interest in this. So your profession has great opportunities there. We have patients med students, fellows, others that rotate through and spend a month with us or sit in on consultations to kind of learn what we do because it is very unique. And then I think the other thing is remember the most important thing you've got is your brain.
Mm-hmm.
So a doctor, a healthcare trained person needs to always think outside the box, listen to the data. I'm always watching the data to eventually prove what I think is true. And that's pretty easy to be way ahead of the game. Um, you ever heard of the Swan-Ganz catheter? It's a
Mm-hmm.
it's a
Mm-hmm.
cath. So long ago I was at a lecture with Jeremy Swan, And
Oh,
some of those guys are so
cool.
famous, they don't have to show slides. They just talk wisdom. And it was interesting. He just said, now remember, all these trials are great, but it's your brain that's the best. To filter that data, don't rest on studies. Think outside the box. Now we also need to be protected from abnormal misuse of
Hmm.
unproven things. But I
Hmm.
think if you're
Hmm.
following the data, there's usually 1,000 studies that have already been done before you get to the human trials of double-blind placebo-controlled trials. And you can tell if they're going the same direction, your wisdom is there. For example, ACE inhibitors.
Hmm.
I had a nephrologist that if I'd have waited for the data, you could tell something was special about an ACE inhibitor. But if I'd have waited until they had all the proof, I'd have 500 more people on dialysis
Right.
because you could tell that it was doing more. So that's the kind of cutting edge thought that I think young healthcare providers look at it, think about that. And then even simply back when I'm just a young pup, I'm thinking, how can you treat a disease if you don't measure it?
Hmm. Hmm.
And that started, with 30, 40 years of we got to measure it. How do you, risk factors aren't the disease, they're just numbers. My medicines, I didn't go to med school to use cheap medicines, bad medicines, just because insurance wants to use them. And
Yeah.
so I think outside the box in these things, and realize I do think that heart disease is psychiatry, lipidology, hypertensionology, rheumatology, cardiology, lipidology. The best person to be a preventive cardiologist is a primary care
Hmm.
provider.
Hmm.
And the cardiologist really should be in a role of just empowering that
Hmm.
because I want them to spend time learning how to throw a fourth quarter Hail Mary. And we're talking about the
Exactly.
preseason, and we
Wow.
need the whole country involved with that.
It's incredible, Dr. Boone. As our last question, as we wrap up, if we as patients and as clinicians truly embraced preventive medicine, what would healthcare look like, do you think, in 20 more years?
Well, I think you'd have an entire generation of 90-year-olds who haven't died. And
Hmm.
I think if you then, we just finished a book called A World Without Heart Attacks,
Hmm.
and the person who was helping us write it, um, she said, what great things could people do if they were dynamite from 65 to 95?
Right.
30
Right.
years of not just playing golf or recovering from strokes or heart attacks. So I think there's a lot of psychosocial things that could be great for society if people turn that on. But it's still a tough world out there. And I just think that for the people that want it, you could eradicate these diseases. And then as a byproduct, your brain and your cancer prevention will go well as well. But yeah, to see how healthcare, it'll take the patient taking charge. We can't depend on the government or a system to pay for it. We've got to want to pay for it. And it's not going to be that expensive.
Hmm.
Don't buy another car if you get a lot of, go buy some better healthcare.
Yes.
And so you can enjoy it. One of the most fun things for me is the patients that come in to hear about their latest escapades because they're young and healthy at 80 and they're not dying and they don't have anything to recover from.
Love
And
that.
they've got 19 grandchildren to play with and all that. So it'll be a strange world, but I always figure my job is not to figure out how to live your life. It's to make sure you can live it as long as is possible and not die of something you could have prevented.
Absolutely incredible. Dr. Jeffrey Boone of BooneHeart.com. Thank you so much for spending the time with us, for motivating us, and for giving us this amazing look into preventive cardiology. It is just incredible.
Thank you very much. Great to be with you. Great job.